with ass. Kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 284 of the Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. If you're listening on the podcast and not listening or watching us live, you can watch us live Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern at facebook.com/Better on Draft and twitch.tv/bod podcast, or just betterondraft.tv. It's easy to remember. I myself am starting off still sober, got the big drop Galactic Extra Dark, and I'm going to be following that up with a Guinness Zero as well as a Wits Peak. So I'm all over the place with regards to beer, but let's go around and see what everybody is drinking, starting off with Daniel. Daniel, what do you got?
Oh, geez, I wasn't ready. I've got, the trusty vodka soda going on, and I also picked up this Shiner Light Blonde.
Shiner Light Blonde. Robert, what about you?
In honor of National Beer Day, which now is belated, I am pretty much doing a triple Lindy right now, and I have the Tex Hex, the Desert Mirage Hazy IPA. I also have Orae from Shiner as well, the Cerveza, and I am topping that off with an Orange Delight from Smooge.
And Nicholas.
Well, I don't know if I can top Daniel and Rodney over there doing his triple Lindy.
Rodney.
But I'm doing the Orlale as well from Shiner. But I'm not doing the other one that Rob has. I have the original, the Shiner Bock, with me.
Well, if you guys could not tell, the fact that we have so many Shiner beers is because our guest today is Shiner.
All right.
Let's introduce them, starting off with Matt. Matt, how are you? What are you drinking, and what do you do over at Shiner?
I am doing great. Thanks for having us, Ken and crew. I head up marketing for Shiner Beers, and I am enjoying right now. I have our brand new Shiner Tex Hex IPA, and I'm going to be drinking the full suite of these over the course of our conversation. I've got Brewhouse Brew, which is our flagship, Desert Mirage, like Nicholas has, which is our hazy, and I've got kind of a top secret sample pack of our not yet launched but soon to launch double IPA, which is called Twin Dream.
All right. And also with us, joining us live, we have Nick. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you're drinking, and what do you do over at Shiner?
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having us on. Super fun, super excited to be here. I do marketing with Matt on Shiner. I am here drinking, like many of you, our new Mexican-style cerveza, Orale.
Orale.
Just fun to say, like that. It's fun to drink too. But actually, and so y'all are getting super fresh beer. Like this is actually out. It's not even in market most places yet. We just brewed, put it in cans about a week or so ago. So
nice.
You got like the first shipment off the line.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. I appreciate you taking the time out. We're going to start off with Matt real quick because we do a lot of research on our guests, and you have a laundry list of brands that you represented throughout your history. My question to you to start off with is how has the transition been going from marketing the most well-known spirits out there like Crown, Tanqueray, Deep Eddy to moving over to Shiner? What was that transition like, and what are kind of like the similarities and differences you see between the two industries?
Wow, I didn't really expect y'all to be doing the background check on me, but appreciate it. Honestly, Ken, like it's not on my LinkedIn or what your detectives turned up, but I actually got my start in beer. I started in 2003 with Guinness out of New York. So I started out as a beer guy. But as you know, Guinness is owned by a big multinational called Diageo, which over-indexes in spirits when compared to beer. So that hence my background across a lot of those big spirits brands that they have. I tell you what, it's been a joy coming back into the beer industry after about 16 years wandering in the wilderness on the spirit side. So beer's always been one of my biggest true passions. So it's great to be back. I've been with Shiner about 18 months now, and it's great. It's amazing working in a family-owned company, and it's just great to be exposed again to the community that craft beer brings. And I'm not sure there's anything similar to that across other categories in spirits. So psyched to be back. I think the biggest difference for me is truly the pace of innovation. Right. If you're working on a spirits brand like Crown Royal, you might be lucky enough to launch 1, maybe 2 new products a year. Whereas in beer, our consumers is constantly looking for new stuff from their favorite breweries. And so, this year we're going to launch 5 new year-round offerings, as well as new seasonals, new limited time offers, new variety packs, etc. So there's as much as we love drinking them, there is a fair amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to make all of that stuff happen, both from obviously from a brewing standpoint, but also from a branding and marketing standpoint. So for me, that's the big thing that's jumped out, is just the sheer pace and quick life cycle of the innovation.
Let me unmute myself there real quick before I pass it off to Rob. I need a little help here, just because whenever someone talks about Shiner, the phrase Spätzle comes out, the phrase Gambrinus comes out. Can you explain the chain of command on how, who, what, where, when, and why for these brands?
Yeah, let me try to untangle that. And Nick, help me out if I get this wrong. Spätzle is the name of our original brewery, and it was named after our first brewmaster, Cosmos Spätzle. The brewery started in 1909 in Shiner, Texas, and it's been brewing beer there ever since. And Cosmos took over the operation in 1914, very quickly went from brewmaster to brewery owner. And he put his name up on the building, where it has stood ever since. It's still there today and hopefully always will be. So that's the Spätzle angle. Shiner has historically been the beer that they brewed at Spätzle, named after the little town of Shiner, Texas, population 2069, kind of in the middle of central Texas. And so Shiner is the name of the beer. And then Gambrinus it's a little trickier. It's more of a corporate entity. And our owner, if your detectives did any work looking into his background, he was really the one who took Corona in the US from essentially 0 cases to about what it is today. And the holding company that he used for that was called Gambrinus. Obviously, it's named after King Gambrinus with the beer connection. And that's the company that Shiner rolls up into. And also we have another beer that rolls up into Gambrinus, which is the delightful Trumer Pils, brewed out of Berkeley, California. But that's probably a topic for another show. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on the difference between Spätzle, Shiner, and Gambrinus Co.
Yeah, if you're thinking Gambrinus, it really is pretty synonymous with Shiner. About 95% of what is sold by Gambrinus is Shiner. There's that small other about 5% that's the Trumer Brewery, but essentially it's one and the same with Shiner.
All right, looks like I'm going to jump in here now. Before I get to my first question, Matt, I do have to say that for everyone that we have talked to that have gotten into the business, you are probably the first person I've ever heard of who essentially got a job from Guinness because you knew how to pour a Guinness beer. So I don't know what to do with that, and I'm just going to leave that where that is.
Well, it's 100% true, Robert. I don't know how you unearthed that, my man, but it's 100% true. I was in business school trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And is it okay if I go off on a little aside here? I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do career-wise, and it had never dawned on me that you could actually have a career in this industry. I couldn't get my head around that. And I was in school, and as companies do, they come to campus and they do like these recruitment presentations. So Guinness comes to campus, and I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. let me check this out. At the very least, I'm going to get a couple of free Guinnesses out of it. So I show up at the information session. I find out it's actually Diageo. They had not only have Guinness, but at the time they had Bass and Harp and Smittix and Red Stripe, as well as all the spirits brands. So that kind of blew my mind. And as luck would have it, at the reception after this information session, it was on campus at a bar that I tended bar at to kind of make ends meet when I was in school. And I was the only one working, or not even working. I was the only one there who knew how to pour a proper 2-stage pint of Guinness. So you better believe I jumped behind the bar. I started slinging beers to all the HR types. I had them crowded around my station, and I'm turning up the charm. I'm dropping brand knowledge on them, and I'm 100% convinced that's how I got the interview for my internship. I got the internship, which led to now a 20-year career in the beer and beverage alcohol industry, all because I knew how to pour a proper damn pint of Guinness.
Yep, exactly. Now I want to ask about the Tex Hex, but first I wanted to start with just the market in general. Obviously, as you and Ken have talked about your history with Crown Royal, Tanqueray, Deep Eddy, there's always this kind of, I don't want to say like infighting, but there's always this kind of Cold War that's always going on with the spirit market versus the craft beer market. And there is kind of this argument that the spirit market is going up while the craft beer market is going down. Do you still see that as a trend, that craft beer is going down, if that is true? And I guess whether it's going down or not, what do you as a brewery do to reverse that?
Yeah, Robert. Wow, there's a lot to unpack in there. I think if you look specifically at the numbers, yeah, the trajectory that spirits have been on over the last 10 plus years, it's been an upward trajectory. There's no way around that. And, some of that is, consumers, just population growth, consumers potentially, shifting behaviors a little bit. But some of that growth based on the sheer trends has come out of beer. And it's been largely your macro domestic beer, but certainly some of it has come out of craft. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed working on both sides is I think the until the last few years, at least, the spirits industry has done a much better job at delivering a wide variety of options to consumers, right? You can have vodka, gin, whiskey, tequila, mezcal, rye, you name it. There's a wide variety of base spirits, and you go into any cocktail bar, you can get a massive, huge array of flavors. And that appeals largely to a lot of younger consumers that are looking for different flavor experiences. It appeals more to females and women. And the spirits industry frankly has done a better job, I think, at marketing to those younger LDA consumers and women consumers. I'm seeing that trend shift a little bit. I think craft has been doing a much better job over the last few years of really innovating, right? Somebody had a smooch in here, as their third year. There you go, Robert. Yeah. I mean, that's a great example of innovating into something. I don't even know how to describe that. We had samples brought in for us just to try it, and it's unlike anything I've ever had before. So I do think beer is getting much, much better at trying to recruit new LDA consumers in, and also to appeal to women. And to bring it home to what we're doing at Shiner, we're actively looking at those trends. Our job is to recruit the next generation of Shiner consumers. And by definition, guys, that next generation, it's going to be younger. It's going to be more multicultural, right? The U.S. is becoming much more diverse and multicultural. And look at our own backyard. Texas is the second most diverse state in the country. We're going to be plurality Mexican-American consumers possibly as soon as this year. And if you're not appealing to, the consumers of all types, then you're not going to be successful at bringing new consumers into the brand. And for years, like I assume you guys would agree, craft has largely been neglecting women consumers. And we're really trying to appeal to women consumers, both with our creative and with the new products that we're offering. And guys, that's how we're going to grow. And that's how we're going to beat spirits at their own game, is being better at bringing new consumers into the category. And that's certainly been our focus with Shiner. And we can talk a little bit later about how specifically we're doing that.
Right. Okay. Then I guess the next question, I actually wanted to ask both of you about the Tex Hex. I guess give us a breakdown of this new line and what you guys are basically what we're pouring that we're drinking right now.
I'll jump in here and talk a little bit about Tex Hex. So this is an IPA that really we created from the ground up. At Shiner, we have done a couple of IPAs in the past. It's never really been a focus area for us. We're founded by German and Czech immigrants and really stayed true to just those classical European styles over the years. And more so, we've looked for opportunities for innovation. And when it came to IPA, we said, let's do this from the ground up and let's look at what IPA drinkers want, especially, IPA drinkers in Texas, which is, the biggest part of our market, and say, what are they looking for? And then specifically, how can we uniquely provide something that doesn't exist today, right? And that's pretty tough when you get in the IPA world, because there are so many options. There's so many people doing unique things. And you look at our lineup and you say, okay, what are you doing that's unique? You've got your single flagship IPA, you've got a hazy IPA. We're coming out with a double IPA. Our take on it is, one, use a unique ingredient that no other IPA brand is doing, and which I'll get to in a second. And two, create a brand that really has an identity unique to who we are, being a Southern, Western, Southwest style brand, and one that's going to connect with our consumers. So on the first one, with the unique ingredient, all of our beers are brewed with cactus water. I've done some digging. I might not have as good of a research team as you all do, but I've done some of my own digging and have not been able to find an IPA brewed with cactus water. So that was a unique element. Obviously ties to our Southwest roots, and it brings this really nice, unique kind of earthy minerality to the IPA that is different than what else is out there. So that's something that we're committed to. It's going to be in all of the IPAs, and it's going to bring that unique bit of flavor to it. So that's part one. And then part two is the branding. And we created something that's just going to appeal to drinkers that want something edgy, something that they can connect with, something that they feel is a good brand for Shiner. And so, Tex Hex as a brand obviously ties to our connection to Texas. It's got this edgy character in it. We're bringing her to life in these fun, unique ways. And so you see it right there. It's our La Bruja character. And so you've got Bruja's Brew, you've got Desert Mirage, and then you're going to have Twin Dream. And really that character is kind of central to all of those, and kind of embodies this, mystical, rebellious spirit coming out of the West Texas desert.
Very cool. All right. Last one I'm going to throw out here, and then I'm going to pass it off to Dan, which actually kind of brings back to Cosmo Spetzel, and kind of thinking about in terms of longevity. Because obviously this with the Shiner Bock and a Bavarian beer that has been around since roughly 1914, 1915. We're talking about a beer that has been out for so long and has still been successful in the market. Though being in a market where we have so much infinite choice, especially with younger millennials and Gen Zers, we've just brought up Smooge, there's seltzers, NAs that are out there. I guess, obviously, it's still a popular beer, especially in Texas and around here as well. But what is done to ensure that this lives on? Because obviously you don't want Shiner Bock to be what turns out to be for millennials their dad's beer.
Yeah, and don't even feel bad saying that, Robert, because we say that to ourselves, and that's really sort of our mission statement. Is
I was going to say, the interview that I read, you said that.
Yeah, I did say that, and listen, you've got to be constantly bringing in new consumers, and you've got to find ways to make your brand relevant. Shiner Bock, make no mistake about it, is our flagship beer. It still represents close to 70% of our sales. It's the big daddy, the OG in our portfolio. And where Shiner Bock goes is the way where our company goes. So it's absolutely critically important for us to bring new consumers in. Listen, we're talking about Tex Hex. We're talking about exciting stuff. I love y'all getting in the spirit of Orale and some of our new offerings, but Bock is where it's at. And we're really trying to make this brand as much of a big tent brand as we can and as inclusive as we possibly can. We want to bring everyone in. Guys, you've had Bock before. Some of y'all are drinking it tonight. And here's the beauty of it. It's a very easy drinking beer that can appeal to all of us. Have friends who like to drink, your domestic beers, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but Shiner Bock is unique in its ability to sort of cross over a little bit. It can appeal to folks who like lighter, macro lagers. It can appeal to, craft beer drinkers that are looking for, something. We don't always want a double IPA that's going to blow the back of our heads off, right? We want, sometimes we want something that's just really easy to drink, rich, malty, finishes with a hint of sweetness, and leaves you wanting that next sip. So we feel like the liquid is really inclusive. And we also feel, the more we tell the story of this brand and we talk about what differentiates Shiner from some other companies, what makes this company really special. You hit on it a little bit, Robert. We've been around a long time. It's 113 years. We've been proudly independent that entire time. We're actually nobody knows this, but we're actually the number 3 biggest independent craft brewer in the country. And that's largely because most of the ones who were previously above us have been bought out by big multinational or big corporations. Mm-hmm. So we're number 3. Every drop of Shiner is still made in Shiner, Texas, which is hugely unique in terms of national craft brands, right? When the bigger craft brands have multiple breweries all across the country, or they're contract brewed all across the country. Every drop of Shiner is still made in Shiner, Texas. And, we're still family owned to this day. We're number 1 craft beer in Texas, number 5 beer overall in Texas, right? Behind Modelo, Bud Light, Dos Equis, and Miller. So we're up there with the big boys in Texas. And, we're available and distributed in all 50 states. So, we really want to just tell the story of this brand, both our history, our heritage, but we all know that, a brand isn't going to survive on that. So you have to make it relevant to new consumers. And to that end, we launched a new campaign. I think that might've been what you read, Robert, about the Say It With Shiner campaign, where, we're looking to try to make this brand relevant to today's craft consumer, not their dads or, God forbid, their grandparents or something like that. And right. we've really tried to do that in relevant ways, right? If you've watched the Say It With Shiner commercial, it's on our YouTube channel for folks who haven't seen it. But we're touching all the big beer connection moments, right? We got sports, we got barbecue, we got music, etc. Mm-hmm. But we're doing it in kind of, different and innovative ways. So instead of doing football or baseball, we actually did Formula One. And the reason for that is it's hugely multicultural, right? It has a hugely diverse fan base, and it has really strong roots here in Texas with the Circuit of Americas in Austin, right? Barbecue, right? Huge connection moment for Shiner, right? Both in Texas and, some of our best accounts outside of Texas are great barbecue joints. So big opportunity there. So we brought to life barbecue in the spot, but we didn't do it in sort of your traditional way. We actually picked one of the only 2 top 50 barbecue restaurants here in Texas that are owned and operated by a female pitmaster. And in this case, an LGBTQ female pitmaster. So we really wanted to kind of take that traditional connection moment and turn it on its head a little bit. And then finally, music was a big part of that spot too, but instead of what you might expect from Shiner, which would probably be more like country music, we went straight up and got this super awesome, diverse, energetic, charismatic band called Black Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears, and they killed it in the spot. These guys are awesome. So we really wanted to try to bring that element in too, as well as some traditional Texas Easter eggs for our consumer, right? We had Big Tex and the Texas State Fair. We had the quirkiness of Marfa and the UFOs. We had a traditional Mexican wedding in like El Paso, and brought all of that to life. But long story short, it's really about helping Shiner appeal to, that next generation of consumers and bringing them into the brand. So as we both said, Robert, like, we're not becoming some dusty relic that is your dad's beer, which we all know, like, today's 25-year-old consumer, 20 something consumer isn't interested in.
Well, and right. we're marketers, so we like to talk about like the brand and all of the communications and everything. But let's also give credit to the beer itself, right? Pabst Blue Ribbon last won it's Blue Ribbon 200 years ago, right? We're winning medals with our beer every single year. Since the turn of the millennium, we've won 21 more for Shiner Bock. So basically, every single year we're winning a medal. We won a gold medal just a year ago or so at the European Beer Star. So you take this to Europe, put it up against other beers in Germany, and it's still getting recognition for it. So you said that you're still getting medals for Shiner Bock
for Shiner Bock after it's been devised after all these years.
Almost every single year we'll send it to the major, not just the major competitions. So like GABF, the Great American Beer Festival, the European Beer Star, World Beer Cup, the Australian International Beer Awards, and essentially every single year at least one of those, it's winning an award. And like I said, the European Beer Star, it won a gold medal up against the other European lagers. So the beer itself is bringing people back, right? We're making the brand relevant, and then they're trying the beer and they're hooked.
There's more questions I want to ask about this because I'm intrigued after you made that statement, but I don't want to hijack what Rob and I'm guessing Dan are gonna take over. So I'm gonna have to come back to that one.
Yeah, hold on to those, Nick.
Hold on to those.
Yeah, I'm holding on. You go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
No worries. So, Nick, this is more directed towards you. So, Shiner's been pumping out a lot of these, lighter beers. Like I've got this light blonde here, for example, things like your 1909, things like that. Most of the beers you crank out, people would actually consider sessionable versus, drinking one or two. Is there a reason Shiner doesn't get into the heavy ABV beers? ABV beers versus a lot of other breweries out there?
Yes and no. So, like you said, for the most part, we've seen a lot of our success in these lighter, more sessionable beers. And, part of that is just an element of where we are, right? We're in South Central Texas, frequently hitting 100 degrees. Summer lasts about 9-10 months of the year here. So, most of our drinkers want to have something lighter, sessionable, refreshing. Even Shiner Bock itself, it's called a Bock. It's really what it is it's a session style version of a Bock, right? It's a lower ABV end of the spectrum, lighter bodied, more refreshing. So with all of our beers, we take a similar approach, which is try to capture as much flavor as we possibly can while still delivering on like light and refreshing and sessionable. And that's the approach that we've taken, with the majority of our portfolio, just recognizing that's what our drinkers want. And we try to provide that in the most flavorful way possible. We have more of these that are now coming out at the higher end of the spectrum. And the Tex Hex series is probably the example there to say, we want about that. We've got our single is a 7%, our hazy is an 8%, and our double is going to be a 9.5%. So those are all going to be really big beers. Even though we're laddering up on ABV, we still kept, a flavor and drinkability at center on those. So like all of those, they're going to be a little bit more potent, but they're going to be still pretty like refreshing. They're still going to have, really nice hoppy flavor that's going to be crisp and refreshing on all accounts. Even the double where, you get a little more body, you get a lot more maltiness in there. It's still not as heavy as some imperials or doubles can get. So I think we try and stay true to that across our portfolio.
Yeah. One other note on that, Nick, I think we could give these guys a little sneak preview of our plans for Brewers Pride. And we've got a range of very low volume, very special releases that we're planning on moving into this year. It's bigger bottles. Think about like what Three Floyds does with Dark Lord, or what Goose Island does with Bourbon County Stout. Like, we're looking into that same space with, single serve, big beers, 10, 11, 12% plus beers, letting our brewery staff that are tremendously talented play around and kind of make the stuff that they want. And our first one coming out is a collaboration with Garrison Brothers, which is a very high-end whiskey made here in Texas. And it's a, how would you describe it, Nick? An imperial barley wine?
So we've kind of gone back and forth on this because we didn't really feel like we needed to be constrained by style on this one. We just said, like, go and brew a beer that's gonna, best fit with this. And so what we did is Garrison Brothers had these barrels they were dumping, and so it was a bourbon that was actually finished in port barrels. So it's been, these barrels had port in them, then they had bourbon in them, and now we got them and put a beer in it. And so barley wine's probably the best descriptor for it. We ended up calling it a doppelbock, but it is kind of somewhere in between those in terms of style wise. I think 12% is where we ended up on that. Just the best delivery of flavor without getting too overwhelming on the alcohol. So we're really excited about that for our first release. That's probably going to be one of those. It hits the shelf and the word gets out and it's gone within a few days. So, keep an eye out for that one for sure.
Yeah, guys, we now that we've given y'all a sneak peek at that, I think we're obligated to send all of these guys a bottle. So we'll make that happen.
Real quick, you had me at barley wine. I'm done.
Yeah, you sold me there too. I'm in as soon as I heard that. That actually brings up something too that I wanted to ask, because you're trying to bring in, and this is for both of you. I'm sorry, I didn't kind of pull it out there. But you're trying to bring in new customers. I'm a perfect example. I walked into Total Wine today. If I wasn't looking for a Shiner beer, I wouldn't have picked it up. It's 100 degrees here in Arizona today, and I'm still about to drink a 13% barrel-aged stout in a little while. What are you doing, or what would you suggest to someone like me who doesn't traditionally drink, a light 99 calorie beer? What am I looking for, and what are you going to target me with to try and bring me over to your brand?
Hey, look, if you're out and you're like in the mood and I'm like, I want a big stout, we're not going to win you over with light blonde. All right. Now, what we know with light blonde is almost all beer drinkers at some point in time are going to drink a light beer, right? That's almost a given, whether it's, even if it's not your normal beer of choice, if you're at whatever, a tailgate or an event or something, and baseball game, whatever, right? Like there's those points in time where you're like, I just want a light beer. And what we tried to do with light blonde is make it so you didn't have to settle for just whatever, macro or big brewery came in with their beer and bought out the distribution in that space. Right. So the idea with this is, we just do a light beer and put as much flavor as we possibly can in it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to like win you over from drinking a stout. We're just trying to like give you a better option when you want to drink a light beer.
Now,
well, sure, but
no, hold on, Dan. I need to ask Nick a question because we need help from Nick, because I need you to sell Dan from 6.5 years ago, because this gentleman who on the screen below you walked into our podcast about beer with a King Cobra.
That's true. That's true.
So Dan was a huge malt liquor drinker when I got to him.
Are you still a huge malt liquor drinker, Dan?
No, I can't tell you the last time I had a King Cobra.
Okay, all right.
How would you sell a malt liquor drinker something in your your collection of beer?
Oh my gosh! Oh, all right. This may be the biggest challenge ever presented as a marketer. I will say there was Founders had like a barrel aged malt liquor. I don't think they make it anymore, but they
DKML.
Yes. That's probably the last malt liquor I had, in all honesty.
Same for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it can be done, right? They were able to do it and actually like bring some flavor to it. That's what I would do, right? You try and find like, that's exactly what I was talking about before, is like figure out what somebody wants, right? So like style wise, if you're a malt liquor drinker, if you're a light beer drinker, a stout drinker, whatever, and give them the best possible iteration of that. And that's what it would be. It would just be like, we're doing something different, unique. We're using better ingredients, whatever it is. And, try and give them what they want, but in the best way possible. We're not trying to, sell anything to anybody they don't already want. We're just trying to give them the best version of that.
Yeah, Nick, I mean, if these guys really did do their research, how did they know we were exploring a 40-ounce pack? I can't.
Same way now. The same way that I knew that Nick worked with diapers.
Matt, I hate to tell you, but
that was ages ago.
Matt, you've put this into the internet, so now I do expect.
We need 40s.
Some SML, some Shiner malt liquor.
Yeah,
Shiner malt liquor.
But
Are they bringing back the old 40-ounce glasses back?
Oh,
glass bottles back?
For sure. Nick, our Nick, not you guys, Nick, but our Nick, Paglia, I wanted to pass it to you because I know you had a question for them.
I want to go back to the metals with Shiner Bock again, because that really intrigues me, that this beer that is, I'd probably say true to style and has been a staple for you guys pretty much since the beginning of the 20th century, basically. Why do you guys, in your opinion, why do you guys still think that this still gets medals after over 100 plus years? We're in 2022. In your guys' humble opinion, why do you guys think that this is still winning awards with now people like us millennials now being of drinking age? Why do you suppose this is still winning medals?
Well, it's hard to give a humble opinion when you're boasting about having won like award every single year, but I'll try and keep it humble.
Well, don't be humble. You don't have to be, but go ahead.
Yeah. I don't want to like be too repetitive, but it's just one of those that we have worked so hard on over the years, right? And we don't have our our expert brewing team on here right now, but as much as we work with them on developing new styles and innovating, we're all working just as hard on maintaining Shiner Bock and ensuring it is the best possible beer. And like with supply chains changing, ingredients changing, crops changing year to year, you can't just always put the exact same ingredients in a beer and have it taste the exact same. There are, those adjustments and those modifications and those changes that you have to make based on, the ingredients you can get. And like I said, even the crop changes will make significant enough differences. You've got, yeast migration over time, all these kinds of things that are managed. And the fact that, put in a focus on that beer. Like I said, 7 out of every 10 beers that we sell is a Shiner Bock. And so that is for us, it is the thing that we have to do more than anything is make sure that's the best beer possible. And so trying to be as humble as possible, we just work really hard at it.
Yeah. And just building on that, I mean, I think it goes back to those original brewing traditions that were started by Cosmo Spetzel. It was no accident that, the Shiner Brewing Association started in Shiner, Texas, because it was the water there that comes out of, our natural aquifer. So you've got the quality of the water, you've got the recipe, you have these old world brewing techniques. The Brewing Association was started by these Czech and German immigrants in 1909 that wanted to recreate the beers from their homeland. And we've stayed true to those traditions for 113 years now. So it really is no surprise to me that we're still winning awards like the European Beer Star because we're still 100% true to that style of beer.
The one thing nobody could ever replicate is our water source, right? And that is like since 1909, the exact same artesian well. It's incredible, having that one brewery location, that one spot. Every single Shiner beer that's ever been brewed, ever been drank, came from that exact same well. It's crazy.
All right. Kind of like with us with the Great Lakes around us, you guys have the well. I guess that's what makes beer unique in our two respective states. I want to piggyback, coming back to another topic. I don't think we haven't really had a chance to talk about it much. So when I heard you guys were coming on the show, when I heard Shiner was coming on, this is the beer that I know you guys of. Mm-hmm. This is what I know you guys for. And then when I was doing my research, you guys started getting into the seltzer game. With respect to seltzers, where do you see those as Shiner? Where do you see seltzers in the future of craft beer? And do you think taking, you guys have stepped into seltzers, do you guys think you guys get into spirits at all or anything beyond seltzers? Or is it just going to be beer and seltzers moving forward? What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, let me just top line this for a second. Listen, I mean, the seltzer growth has been phenomenal the last 6-7 years, right? Everybody in the industry knows it, and love it or hate it, right? It's been explosive growth. And, most craft breweries have seltzer or beyond beer offerings. And we looked long and hard at that segment. And, you've got the market leaders out there that have, a massive share of the segment. But then there's always going to be space for somebody who does it more local and more craft with better ingredients or better appeal in your own backyard. And we saw a nice little niche to be able to participate and win in. So we went for it. And, we tried to find a way to really differentiate ourselves from the market leaders, right? We wanted to do something very different. So we have a seltzer pack called Tall Tales, which is it's Texas cocktail inspired hard seltzers. So traditional Texas cocktails like the Ruby Red Paloma or the Mexican Martini or the Texas Mule. And, our flavors are really true to that. And our packaging is very different. We wanted to jump out of the cold box and just be something different. And we've been successful in carving out a little niche within seltzer. But I think everyone at Shiner will tell you we are first and foremost a beer company, and I believe we always will be. We're really focused on that space. I said earlier, we want to be a Big Ten brand. We want to have a product for everyone. So, of course, we're going to enter the seltzer game. As we talked about, recruiting younger consumers and more female consumers, seltzer checks those boxes big time. So we're going to play there. But I don't think anybody's going to look at Shiner and say, y'all ain't a beer company anytime soon.
You probably don't get Mexican martinis up in Michigan, do you?
I mean, we do have Mexican Town out here, so I mean, we do have the ability to do it in a way.
But is it going to be done the right way? I think it depends. It depends on which restaurant.
On where you go.
Yeah,
it depends on which restaurant. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a huge, I go to Dallas every year, and there's a huge cultural respect and difference because you guys have Tex-Mex, whereas we, on the other hand, have a huge Mexican culture in the Detroit area between Spring Wells and Mexican Town that have been brought up. So it's not Tex-Mex as much as Mexican, but I've been told there is a complete difference between the two, and to never say they're the same.
I have a coworker from. Yes, I have a coworker from Texas. She says the same damn thing.
Just don't challenge a Texan to anything, because no matter what it is, they're going to be stubborn about it.
Nope. I've learned that the hard way.
Now, before we end the show, everyone's going to ask you a final question. My question to you guys, because I want to touch a little bit on the brand new products that you guys are bringing out, which is your IPA trilogy. So up in Michigan, our access to Shiner is fairly limited to basically Shiner Bock, and then we get a handful of either Ruby Redbird or 1909.
Cheer.
Cheer. A lot of these smaller beers, well, everything's smaller in comparison to Shiner Bock itself. As you said, 70% of your market share is Shiner Bock. But it seems that you guys have been rolling out these newer beers for national distribution. What is your thought behind the initiatives to bring in these new beers to market? Like, how do you decide this is what we're going to make and this is what you're going to distribute and this is what we're going to bring to Michigan?
That's a really good question. And, I think what what you'll see is it's not necessarily as thought through as we look at every 50, all the 50 states and say, this is what's going to go where. And, this is what, we're just going to keep here for Texas. We would send all of our beers everywhere if we could. Right. So, the fact that we have the opportunity to send more of our portfolio beyond Shiner Bock is just a testament to those beers growing in popularity. I think Cheer is probably, the best example of that. That's our holiday beer. It's a Dunkelweizen we brew with peaches and pecans. It's a unique flavor. It's something a little bit different around the holidays. It's just a really like a nice spirit lifting, fun design that we refresh every year and give it a fresh look. And it's one of those that has taken off. We sell more of that every single year, and we've added more and more states, and, people just love it everywhere we go. It takes off. So, when we see that happen, we want to get it out there and we make sure we get it as broadly as we can.
Yeah, just building on that. Great answer, Nick. Listen, it's really dictated by the market. And, I talked about us being the number one craft beer in Texas. We get to act like, and the number 5 beer overall in Texas. So here in our backyard, we get to act like a big beer, right? We're playing right up there with the Modelo's and, the Bud Lights and other really big players. Whereas we also have the benefit outside of our core markets of acting like a nimble, agile challenger brand, which is also a heck of a lot of fun. So as Nick said, it's really dictated by the consumer demand in each market. And that's part of our jobs as our marketers, to tell the story about Shiner, make consumers aware of these new offerings. And if they connect with something like Tex Hex or Orale, and we hope they do, then obviously we're going to make those available in every market. So, I would really hope and I would expect to see, some availability of beers like Orale in Mexican Town. And we eventually want Tex Hex to go national, right? We all know that IPA is the biggest and fastest growing category. We think we have a fantastic offering. I'd love to know what y'all think, those of you who are drinking our Tex Hex, what you think. I mean, we're really, really proud of both the packaging, but even more so the liquids, and they're super quaffable for 7-8% ABV beers, in my opinion. And we feel like the cactus water just gives them a little bit of extra body and mouthfeel that is really appealing and sessionable. So I'll let you all opine on that in a minute, but it's really dictated by the market and where we think the demand is. And we'll happily sell beer anywhere anywhere consumers are asking for it.
As you said,
can I make one quick comment real quick? Well, I'm just going to say, Brew Detroit, you guys got yourself some competition with the Mexican style cerveza
Del Rey.
Cerveza Del Rey and Orale. There you go.
What I'll do is, after the show, I'm actually going to be heading to Brew Detroit in a couple weeks. I will grab a 6-pack and I will ship it down to you guys. So I'll work with Madeline over there, great person who we've been chatting back and forth probably for the last year. We appreciate everything that she does, getting us some stuff to review for you guys.
Yeah, she's awesome.
But we're going to be doing our final questions. This is how we end the show. Everyone's going to ask a final fun question before we get on with our Friday nights. Starting with Dan. Dan, what's your final question for these gentlemen?
First off, shout out for using the word quaffable. We've been on almost 300 shows. I don't think anyone's ever used that before. So that's kind of awesome. But this is for both of you, kind of a fun one. If there was one style of beer that Shiner doesn't currently make that you could convince the brewers to make for you to help you do your job, what style of beer would you like them to make for you to market?
I would say, the one that we haven't really tapped into that, is really a big style in craft beers that I think we could do a fantastic job on would be a really nice stout. Right. And that's not a style that has, really been a huge growth engine in Texas. But I think, when you look specifically at some of the craft brewers around here, there's some great ones being made, some really interesting ones. And I think Texans are going to catch up with the rest of the country here pretty quick and see that, there's a lot of great flavor to be had in those styles.
Yeah, I would say this coming year, we're checking 2 big ones off my list in IPA and IPAs, I should say, with our flagship, with our hazy and with our double. So that's a big part of my drinking repertoire. So I'm psyched to have some IPAs out there from Shiner. Also, Orale, a Mexican style craft lager. Man, it's hot down here in Texas. So you want something to crush poolside? That's it. It's amazing in a michelada as well. So super psyched to have that coming out. But I would echo Nick. Like sometimes you just have that hankering for like a really good stout, big bodied stout or porter style beer. And, we have some very limited offerings in that space, but they're not year round and they're not readily available even to us. So I'd probably echo that, a really good dark beer in the stout or porter category.
Awesome.
Rob, what's your final question?
Mine is going to be broken up, so it's going to be first one to Matt. As a graduate of the University of Notre Dame, tell me something that a Notre Dame alumni does better than a USC alumni. Alumni. There we go.
You're just about to say that again.
Yeah. What is something that a Notre Dame I can't say the word alumni does better than a Trojan alumni?
That's what happens when you do a triple Lindy.
Hey, there's going to be a lot of editing on this episode.
A little bit.
Nah, we're not going to do it.
That's pretty good, Robert. Bringing in the football rivalry. Judging by the last 20 years or so, I'd have to just say play football.
Good answer. It works. To Nick, what is one album you can listen to cover to cover, and what Shiner beer would go with that when you listen to it?
You gotta give me a heads up warning on this one. So, there's a bunch. I'm trying to think like which one I would pair.
Please don't be Pearl Jam's 10.
I was trying to think like a Motown one for the Detroit reference. Like I'm a big Smokey Robinson fan. Could have done one of those. I would say an album like Zeppelin 1 or 2, and I would 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Just not physical graffiti. That's nah.
Honestly, I would pick a beer that I would want to drink for that period of time, and honestly, that right now is Orale. Like I could drink that pretty much hours on end. It's just so damn refreshing. I couldn't get out of there without dropping at least one curse word.
Yeah, Robert, why are you giving him the great question and I get like some lame football question, bro? Come on, man.
It was a spot decision.
I mean, it's better than me, the Miami fan, asking you how it feels that the convicts won the Catholics versus convicts rivalry.
I'll tell you how it felt. It kind of sucked. I needed about 4 or 5 Shiners to get over that one.
Nick, what's your final question?
All right, so baseball season just started. You guys have the Texas Rangers. We have the Detroit Tigers. It's opening weekend. What beer is in your fridge that is not a Shiner brand that you will be drinking this weekend? We'll start with Nick first.
All right. So I figured somebody was going to ask that question. Like, all right, if you can't have Shiner, what are you going to have?
Hey.
I'm not saying that they're necessarily in my fridge right now, but ones that you might find if you happen to come by at the right time would be some other Texas craft, right? And try to keep up on what's going on innovation wise. I've got a lot of respect for Live Oak. They do some other good like classic European German styles. Jester King does some really interesting stuff. They're in hill country out here. They do some like wild fermentations that are really interesting. If there's one that I probably like their marketing as much as their beer, there's a brewery, Brash, out of Houston. Follow their social channels, and you can thank me later.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I'm as stoked as I think the rest of us are about baseball starting, albeit a week late. But hey, let's go. Listen, I'm always going to try to grab a Shiner, and something like a sea salt and lime would be super dope during a baseball game. But you said outside of Shiner, I'd probably go with Trumer Pils, which is our sister brewery, which is just a classic crisp Pilsner. In my opinion, one of the perfect examples of that style. And that's exactly what you want when you're watching a ball game, especially if you're in the stadium, right? Just a delicious, crushable Pilsner that you can have more than one of. That's my jam. I also want to do a shout out to Jester King as well. They're kind of our neighbors here in Texas, doing some super dope stuff. And Robert, since you brought up Notre Dame, they're actually one of the co-owners is a Notre Dame alumni. So throw that out there.
There you go. Ken, take it.
You can.
There we go. As much as we are a craft beer podcast from the state of Michigan, the amount of Texas breweries we've interviewed, especially recently, is crazy, because you said Live Oak, which is episode 283 with Doosan. We had Jeffrey Stuffings from Jester King, episode 240. We even had, when you said Brash, I thought you may have said New Braunfels with Kelly Meyer over there. Just based on his book, How to Not Start a Brewery, I believe is what it's called, or How to Not Start a Damn Brewery. That's it. Episode 265. My final question, I'm going to have separate ones just for both of you guys. Real quick, Nick, behind you, you have a guitar. What's the first song you're going to play for someone when they walk into your office?
God, Nick gets all the good questions.
No, I haven't tuned that in a long time, so I'm not playing anything right now. It's going to sound like crap. But if I had, what would I be playing?
Van Halen's Eruption.
I was gonna say Nirvana's about a girl, as long as it's not the guy from Puddle of Mud singing it.
If it's a light day and I don't want to do anything challenging, I'll do Eruption, you know.
I know literally 2 songs on the guitar, and one of them is Brain Stew by Green Day, which is literally, I think, 8 notes.
There's like 3 chords.
3 chords. I don't even know if it's 3 chords. Matt,
I'll do some Foo Fighters. I'll do like Learn to Fly or Everlong, something like that. One step up from Green Day.
Rest in peace, Taylor.
Yeah.
For you, Matt, you have such an extensive brand history of things that you've been able to promote, sell, and market. What is your cocktail of choice?
Oh, damn.
Was that oh, he left.
I think he's going to make it.
He's going to make it.
I was just going to say, I got a guitar here, too.
You're not going to play Wonderwall for us, are you?
So mine would be Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers by ZZ Top, where I would go. My go-to cocktail, damn, that's really hard. I would have to say it's probably seasonal, and I'm going to waffle on this. I would say in the spring, it's definitely going to be a classic gin martini, extra wet, with olives and a twist. And I would say in the fall winter, I'm going the analog of that with a classic rye Manhattan with Antigua formula vermouth and a healthy dose of bitters in there. Both of those, by the way, are pretty good complements if you need to have a little Boilermaker action with a beer back. Both of those are amazing with the right style of beer.
Well, thank you so much, Matt and Nick, for joining us. We appreciate it. Go find Shiner, I believe, in all 50 states. Go ask your local craft beer store, your local grocer to carry it. Go if it's been a minute since you've had a Shiner Bock, go get a Shiner Bock. Go remind yourself why you started drinking craft beer, because that's probably one of the many first craft beers a lot of people drink. But that's going to do it. Better on Draft, episode 284. I believe, 284. Yeah. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft. Have a good night.